All right, guys. So I've been told that the internet at school is not working very well today. So this is going to be a supplemental lesson plan for our AP class. I did go and get a COVID test on, gosh, all my days are running together. I guess it was the end of the day on Monday, and unfortunately, I did test positive. So I will be quarantining the rest of this week, and I should be back in class on Monday, assuming that my symptoms have subsided. I think the whole quarantine thing is a little bit odd, where you have like this 10-day period of time where you have to quarantine, but then there's like you need to have 2 days without any symptoms before you can return, I guess. So the earliest I will be back in person will be next Monday, which I guess is a virtual day, so I will not see you guys in person until Tuesday or Wednesday. But did want to touch base with you just about a couple of things. Here is the final schedule for the end of the year. So if you guys want, you can just take a screenshot of that. Yes, it is a little bit different than what we're used to. We're used to taking 2 tests a day and having a half a day. And it looks like they're going to cram 4 finals in on Monday, December 21st, and then 3 finals in on December 22nd. My guess is because they have to have some time for makeup finals. But for us, obviously being 7th hour, our final will be December 22nd from 9:35 to 10:35. Our final will be cumulative, but since we only have 60 minutes, we're going to have to pare that down from the final that we gave last year, just because obviously you guys don't have an hour and a half to take the test. So yes, it will be a comprehensive final going all the way back to like chapter 1, and then all the way, our goal is to get through chapter 19 by the end of the semester. So we have roughly 2 weeks to get through chapter 17, chapter 18, and chapter 19. Obviously, you guys already got your notes for 17 on Monday. Hopefully you're staying on top of those. Obviously, AP doesn't wait for anything, so it's just content, 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 boom, 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 all the way through to the end of the semester. So should wrap up chapter 17 today or tomorrow, and then we'll get started on chapter 18. I guess it'll be Thursday and Friday this week, which will give us some time next week to get through chapter 18, chapter 19, and then do some review for our final. But I'll do my best to kind of stay on top of that information, really relay that stuff to you as it goes. Just wanted to touch base with you briefly about chapter 17. Obviously, the title of the chapter is Manifest Destiny and Its Legacy. So it's looking at the time period between 1841 to 1848. And this is kind of where we see this term used for the first time by a man named John L. O'Sullivan in 1845. And for those of you that had me as a freshman, you might recognize this particular painting. This is something that we talked about in our westward expansion unit. So usually when you're talking about manifest destiny, if you break down the word manifest and destiny, manifest means to make real, to make manifest, and then destiny is obviously what's coming in the future. In the case of this particular unit, we're talking about westward expansion, so it's kind of that undeniable fate that the United States was destined to expand west across the North American continent. And the things that they usually point out in this painting, obviously you have the characters in the foreground here. You've got the bison and the buffalo and the Native Americans, and every character in this painting is moving in the same direction. They're all moving west. So the left side of the painting, these characters are being driven out by America and all of this new technology. So you have the Native Americans and the bison on the left side of the painting. Kind of in the foreground of the painting, you have farmers, settlers, speculators, entrepreneurs, people moving west to capitalize on the new land. In the background of the painting, you see a mountain range and then what some people would argue might be stormy clouds. So with the new technology, with westward expansion, and driving out of Native Americans and animals, you're bringing conflict. On the right side of the painting, you notice that the sky is a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter. And you see what might be probably a city. If I had to guess, it'd probably be New York City. We've got bridges and boats. And then if we kind of focus back on the middle portion of this painting, the character America here is, she's bringing with her like law and reason and government. And then some people would argue this is a power line, or you could say that it's a telegraph line, but essentially she's bringing with her the fruits or the benefits of westernization. She's bringing the fruits and the benefits of new technology, logic, reason, and law. So what's kind of cool about this particular unit is you get to see kind of how the outline of the United States is actually created. Chapter 17 focuses on a lot of Texas, areas of California, and then the Pacific Northwest. And really it's chapter 17 where we see these borders being drawn that kind of delineate the separation between the United States and Mexico. So going back a chapter or two, if you remember learning about the Alamo, Texas had fought for independence both from Mexico and the United States. And settlement in Texas was initially encouraged by the Mexican government until Texas became independent. And then this idea of annexation kind of came about, and whether or not the United States should annex Texas and make it a slave state. So obviously you're bringing in information regarding the Missouri Compromise and whether or not states should be added as slave states or free states. And we see Jackson, Van Buren, and Harrison all trying to avoid the topic of annexation. And during this particular time, Mexico is still claiming Texas to be its own. And then we see a shift begin to happen during the 1844 election, where our future president, James K. Polk, actually readdresses the topic of annexation, whether or not the United States should annex Texas and make it a state. One of the other things that Chapter 17 focuses on is the Pacific Northwest, and obviously we had land added to the United States in the form of the Louisiana Purchase. We have a current kind of battle going on in the South over whether or not Texas should be annexed. And simultaneously, we're also dealing with the Pacific Northwest, areas of upstate Washington and Oregon. So as you do your reading through Chapter 17, you're going to see this phrase 5440, or fight. And I wanted to just point this out to you real quick here. What they're referencing with 5440 or fight, if you look at the map here, we have our lines of latitude and longitude. And they're basically what they're trying to determine is the northernmost border of the United States. So like we need to, at least the supporters of adding this Oregon territory in the Pacific Northwest believed that the United States should be delineated along this 5440 line of longitude and latitude. Where are we here? Okay. So this particular section, the impending crisis with the Mexican-American War, we begin to see tensions rising in Mexico. And obviously you have all of this added growth, American growth in New Mexico and California. And then we see this dispute kind of take shape over where the border of Texas actually is. Should it be on the Nueces or the Rio Grande River? So I wanted to zoom in here on this map so you can see what they're talking about. But obviously this line right here is our current image or idea of the border between the United States and Mexico, which is the Rio Grande, the river here. But prior to this time period, they were trying to determine if this line here with the Nueces River should be the delineating mark between the United States and Mexico. So President Polk is pressuring Congress to annex Texas. Obviously, the Whig Party is against this. Adding Texas as a slave state would kind of tip the scales in favor of, in Congress, tip the scales in favor of states that wanted to maintain slavery. And Polk gets the nomination for the Democratic Party because he supports the idea of annexation. Kind of lastly, wrapping up the Mexican-American War, we have the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. One of the representatives that was sent to Texas to negotiate this Mexican secession on behalf of Polk essentially wrote the terms of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, where the United States agreed to pay roughly $15 million and assume the claims of the U.S. citizens against Mexico, totaling $3.2 million.